Logical dilemmas are seldom discussed in gameplay analysis, despite the clear relation. The umbrella of logic is broadly examined across maths, computing, and philosophy. Common subjects taught to children, yet minute translation is vocalized for our most complex interactables. Even in the simplest games, there's a constant dynamic of variables to control. This is all taken for granted these days, and reviews are boxed into a collection of cool-sounding adjectives. A frequent example would be the criticism of battle systems in RPGs being unsophisticated, often without considering the context of an ongoing gauntlet about managing your resources. Newer titles would grow lenient on restrictions such as inventory capacity, and attempt to convert the decision-making to a more immediate context. This isn't intrinsically bad, though I do lament that this priority was seemingly formed from questionable reasoning or consumer demand. Turn-based encounters are indiscriminately given a 3D plane, AI partners, and rapid combos with little synergy. Even with the sheer frequency of sequelency, respective gameplay systems tend to lack a considered logical evolution, missing the opportunity to provide recontextualized challenges that build on our pre-established knowledge. For this video, I'd like to present a productive thought experiment on mechanical adaptability. To grasp this concept accurately, we should first define strategy in gaming, and I'm not just talking electronics. Chess is the premier example for abstract tabletop strategy, alongside shogi and xiangqi. Testing strategies in a purely logical environment, parties shared an equal number of infantry, units had varying movement ranges and passive skills. Some versions even had area effects, though regardless of how many additional mechanics there were, both participants always had a fair playing field. Symmetry was a common aspect across the design of multiple board games, to ensure no outside factors. If pieces were random, there would be no truly reliable basis for deductive reasoning. If another side had even one extra digit, there would be an unbalanced dynamic. Card games specifically embraced the gambling facet these two misnomers brought. In this sense, strategy can be served by symmetrical arrangements, or at least it allows for fairness. Even if a game had hidden elements, as long as the two sides are equal in this rule set, mind tactics will persist. Capturing this specific unit is my priority, but the opponent doesn't know, and I'm also unsure on what they're planning. The challenge is left in the player's hands. Only their intelligence can dictate the quantity of struggle. Let's paraphrase that in plain English. I think the symmetry in board games can guide strategic gameplay. Okay, but if we were to define strategy in this way, then what does that imply about difficulty? Chess is a perplexing game, depending on who you're up against. Challenge is player-centric. I've mentioned this briefly in my Hatena vid, but I believe this symmetric aspect is demonstrated well in fighting games. Although there's a similar focus on skill to be able to maximize damage and perform fast inputs, to quickly consider how the rival may react, it helps they tend to share the same block, parry, and evasive skills. Worst case, the lizard you select is known to have issues which can easily be punished, yet the fighter genre still provides a decent example for balanced symmetrical strategy. So what about RPGs? More precisely, what's up with strategy games? When surveying the history of role-playing games, you'll notice most are single-player. If the priority of these experiences were to immerse gamers into fantasy worlds, then having some extra bloke rolled up kind of defeats that purpose, as if gaming with Yangus isn't ideal.
Oi, Gav!
There aren't many examples of PvP strategy games outside of the RTS subgenre, with no additional participant partaking is up to developers to create a tangible difficulty curve. Designing challenge has changed drastically over the decades. Appealing to a wider audience prompts a priority for convenience and dynamism above else, including tactics. Easiness is only one part of this dilemma. Having the numbers prominently in your favour additionally causes an imbalance in symmetry. The meat bags no longer match the digits you deal. Dissimilar to other genres, RPG design is heavily reliant on these integers and percentages. Bringing the principalities of chess-likes to electronic format sounds like a good idea, but it's also tempting to combine it with some type of progression system, which shorthands the logic. Awkwardness settles in after understanding that these games can neither be a true form of abstract strategy nor provide a palpable feeling of adventure due to inherent immersion-breaking presentation. Digits may be the backbone gameplay-wise, but that didn't stop Final Fantasy VII from rivaling cinema at the time. Hybridization within the pool of interactive attributes across the sea of genres has become stupendously common. Roguelikes, sports managers, farming sims, card-based action, these are fun concepts, homogenized over time, woefully lacking the tighter design guided by previous symmetrical puzzles. So how do we counter all this? One suggestion may be to equally embrace both aspects, but what does that actually mean? For me, it means mechanics could be accurately translated into a symmetrically designed campaign, juxtaposing earlier elements within a series or genre, whilst maintaining an interesting facet to explore. Is this insanity? And what does any of this have to do with the video? Well, when I was growing up, our family would visit various car boot sales, greeted by cheap, funny trinkets. For me, it was computer discs with educational software gamerizing math equations and geography. Eventually, I stumbled into a pirated Sega Smash Pack containing Shining Force, my proper introduction to RPGs. On its own, there's not much to write about. In the context of interpreting game design across genres, despite humble appearances, this topic's aspects are surprisingly well demonstrated using this as a basis. We can start with difficulty, because although there are specific methods in trivializing it, tackling each skirmish offered cubical growth in difficulty as both my party and enemies became more experienced. Rarely did I have any specific character Fire Emblem their way through encounters. Sure, I've played my Pokémons beforehand, but I was never really challenged the way these dwarves did. In hindsight, the game was only mildly difficult towards the final chapter, but that's not to say it was smooth sailing. Enemies could bully specific units as they have terrain advantage, while your guys were stuck in the woods. Bosses would quickly recover their health, so each coordinated attack had to count, or one of these dudes gonna get clapped. Hopefully not your main man, otherwise you're restarting. Similar to its predecessor, the difficulty builds organically with some spicy bumps, though the challenge is only one of the many aspects that have been expanded since. Something as innocuous as attack range has been greatly dilated across weapons and magics. Vague groups have been griddled to be targeted as diamonds, crosshairs, and biblically accurate angels. The icon menu returns to become further consistent across the interface, with its purposeful limitations. As you can see, this sequel just casually switched genres, attempting to translate aspects beyond the darkness. Many of these adjustments correlated with a newfound priority: unit diversity. It's rare to see magicians quintuple from 2 to 10, discreetly pulling their own spellful tetratray. This meticulous Venn diagram regarding available sorcery stretches across numerable categories. Which ones have more magic points? Which ones can move fast? Which ones can fly over mountains? Only this one. Do they have good melee damage? Do they have enough HP? Do they have the drip? Extending these statistics from 3 to 30 characters creates a jumbled ancestry of inherited traits. With few exceptions, each member offers their own set of strengths and weaknesses. Xylo has good attack, doesn't need to equip a weapon, can ignore terrain, however, he's awkward to promote, and there are 2 whole chapters after recruitment where terrain is pragmatically a non-issue. These surfaces are as smooth as your forehead. A common complaint I see online is the frequent use of alpine battlegrounds. You're offered 6 centaurs, and there are 7 mountainous maps, but I'm also not sure what was expected. Proactive environmental limits efficiently test party formations. Even if your bird boy can move anywhere, you may still want to position them outside another's range. Adversely, boxing highly mobile units for the big boys is tempting for this kind of area. As such, choosing from a varied pool rather than sticking to favourites is cajole per zone. Calzone style. Design-wise, it's a quick balancing solution, even if it slowly breaks the pace. Chapter 2's opening trek is an extreme case. The final wave has a mix of multi-targeting mages and zombies. High attack, high defense, can intoxinate, and there's 4 of them, but there's 10 of you. By intelligently shuffling your toke, striking the mages first, and appropriate positioning, your strat is rewarded.
And the freshest thing in this kitchen is that pigeon flying around.
However, this is after wading through dozens of empty turns to traverse all this damn sand. Watching this squircle hover over each fellow can be tiresome to follow. That could go for the battle animations too. Instead of opting a turn order, or even a way to speed up or turn down the time, it lifts the battle speed directly from its precursor. Legacy. Jak and Daxter. It's a true blue sequel, even the menus are blue too. How many sequels have their literal pacing be inspired? Which is good for general level design, not so much for convenience, but at least time can fix that. This synapomorphy has gone too far, left with a game that repositions every element into a new block of grids. Pernial translation could be assessed exhaustively, and that would still only cover the gameplay. This leads us to the visuals, the thing you all probably wanted me to talk about, because yeah, I love this art style. Detailed habitats have been unearthed from the catacombs, spread flaunting these cool pixels. Vibrant visions vary from canyons to churches to demon castles, which are the same thing depending on who you ask. Most maps contain a unique tile set, and sometimes even unique enemies that only show up for one battle, cinematically providing dynamic sets throughout the narrative, specifically for our characters to take the spotlight. Ungulate is a very good word. Likewise, it can describe the majority of the cast. In fairness, if you're going to recycle sprites, at least choose one with a gigantic arse, or literally half an arse. One thing I learnt about gaming is that we tend to gravitate towards characters, but I feel there's been an abundance of humans. I can understand why. We are human, so it's easier for us to relate to characters that share the same species as us. Clearly, it is important for narratives to convey believable personalities to immerse ourselves in these fictional settings. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, we seem to also apply this rule to the creature we are speaking to. Despite the inherent fantasy setting, we still limit ourselves to using characters that appear human-like. Why does Mario have arms gameplay-wise? He just has a run and a jump. Truthfully, you can take any character and make them into an amorphous blob, yet the humanoid templates stay rigid. Yeah, I know he throws fireballs, but did you know he could spit fire? When a new game does release that has a unique animal or creature to maneuver, it goes pretty viral. Much of this seems novel, though if you applied this coat of paint to an actual video game, Shining Force on its own is a regular strategy game, but it also allows you to play as a steampunk armadillo. His name is Gunts. Unit diversity extends graphically to all kinds of monsters and monstrosities, optically coding their statistical function. When describing a flying bulky magic caster, what do you picture? If you guessed Domingo, then you have played the game. Else you may be wondering what you're looking at. Lots of layers going on here. The big spongy cap doubles as a wizard hat. Clearly he works out of a library. It's not flying, it's swimming, which is a bit random, but at least his spells are fittingly cephalopody. The cast emphasise expressive animations, which lends a strange catharsis with every play. Magical storms are directly snagged from the darkness, as well as the cinematic letterboxing. Combining all this, the presentation peaks when nailing that multi-hit blaze spell, turning the enemy's formation and number advantage into something you can exploit. In some sense, it's like chess's insanity. Castles glide across the board, horses exclusively ungulate in L's. That's not even bringing up the variations with undead soldiers re-emerging from the void, and diagonal leaping elephants. There's something inherently goofy about these dilemmas, and video games are great for leaning into that. Online parodies of RPGs consistently mock the questionable application of turn-based conflict. Final conflict. Qualitatively, I can see the benefits of this type of design. Graphics and interactivity are surprisingly well translated. I've praised the fair symmetrical implementation of tactics, and the tactical symmetry of its implementation. However, difficulty and complexity are still rather lacking, despite the abstract puzzle-like quality. As long as you're wisely spreading XP across effective digits, you won't be getting any game overs. Even if units collapse, you'll likely still beat the battle by simply managing your weed. The Aggress spell lets you redo any fight, keeping any experience previously earned, allowing for easy grinding. patently, this leeway wouldn't be described as an inclusion that would incentivize balanced logical play. There are even items that can do this, bought for relatively cheap, available from the previous game. At the beginning of this video, I suggested we take a closer look at mechanical adaptability. There's no definitive answer to what should or shouldn't be adapted across genres, franchises, or even mediums. I reckoned this fish was going to join our party based on the anime icon and the way she's introduced. If she was cut content served to the chippy, do you think it would have had something to do with the map design? As an aquatic associate, perhaps in this hypothetical version, maps would have incorporated water more tangibly. Would the game logically benefit from another plane of combat? To conclude, I think Shining Force makes for an interesting example. As a genre swap sequel, yet its weirdly faithful adaptation of mechanics and style is only second to Justice. And if you really want to be meta, how does the video game design translate to video essay form? What do you think? When I uploaded my Shining in the Darkness video, I wasn't expecting such a large positive response. I've enjoyed reading about your memories in the comments. Oh, and I will be making more short videos. How else will I cover all this ground within my lifetime? Until then, goodbye.